series with me today, once again, the amazing and lovely woman, Niara Terela Isley, whom I love very much because she's a very wise woman and she has a lot of experience to share. She was enlisted in the military and involved in unfortunate events that happened to her, and she wrote a book about this that I introduced to you already, and this is Facing the Shadows, Embracing the Light. And she tells all about her story, incredible stories, and how you heal. And it's a formidable, this book is a formidable guide to the discovery of our development, our awakening, our healing. Well, anyway, I really recommend her book, this one. But tonight, tonight we are going to talk about something very, very important. Niara, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing good.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, Niara and myself decided to do this video. Well, Niara contacted me and said that she had something very important to share that could be very useful to a lot of people. So tonight I'm going to let you, Niara, talk about the different ways of apprehending the positive ETs and the negative ETs, how to feel straight away if they are benevolent or malevolent. So I'm going to leave the floor to you and listen with great attention. Thank you.
All right. Well, feel free to jump in when you need to, or when you feel moved to do so. So there was actually a Facebook discussion about ET contact and whether humanity is ready for it and so on and so forth. And I think humanity needs to get ready for it. I think it's really vital to get ready for it. And yet we have all these people out that are disconnected from their feelings. They're disconnected from their gut sense. They're disconnected from their intuition. And how are they supposed to tell whether ETs that they see or interact with are good or bad? You know, because they could look wonderful and yet have a very bad vibe, and they could look really ugly and they could have a very good vibe, you know, kind of like in Lord of the Rings, where Frodo sees Strider for the first time, and he looked pretty dark and pretty foreboding and everything. And Frodo says, well, he says, he looks foul, but he feels fair to me. And I think an agent of the Dark Lord would probably look fair and feel foul. So that's just to kind of open up this discussion a little bit. But it's really important, at least for the people listening to this show, this discussion, then you can want what you take away from this discussion. And if you read my book, and especially the chapter Resonance, Dissonance, and Discernment, you're going to come away with a lot of material that you're going to have to take in and digest in the best way that you can. But you have all the equipment to do that, because that's how we're wired as human beings. We have all these different touches of who we are that were added by our extraterrestrial family. You know, whether we're Sirian or Lyran or Pleiadian or Andromedan or Arcturian, you know, there are so many different strands of DNA are within us. And we are their children. We are their genetic heritage. That's why we're so important on this planet. And yet, way back in the very beginning, when humanity came here and were building their civilizations, back around the time of Atlantis, even before Atlantis and Lemuria, there were negative ETs that came, and they took primeval people and they disconnected all that genetic material. And so it's still in there, it's just disconnected. And that's why we get this term that is kind of, we don't use it too much anymore, but we call it junk DNA. Well, there's all this DNA. We don't know what it does. You know, why do we have it? And everything. Well, because it's supposed to make us a whole functioning unit of humanity, person by person, who has all these skills and abilities intact. But the good news is we can relink it up. And we do it with the power of love. Because when we have love and we have good feelings and joy and happiness, you know, the wavelengths of those emotions pass through the DNA in our bodies, and they turn on more and more of those codons. So that's the path to reclaiming our genetic heritage. And it's very challenging to do right now, because I think fear porn is at some of the highest volume that it's been on this planet. I mean, it's been high for a long time, but they have it turned up super high right now with all the things that are going on, and you all know what's going on, so I don't think I need to repeat it. So it's a challenge now more than ever. But just remember that whatever the agendas are for throwing out all the fear, the one agenda that doesn't get discussed nearly enough is they want to make sure that we don't have the positive emotions we need to turn on all of our genetic heritage. Because once we do that, we escape the trap. We escape the trap. We dream a new existence into reality, and there it is. And they're left on the out in the cold, you know. And so this is really, it's powerful information. I remember when I was writing my book, and I wrote all the things about the gas companies suppressing UFO technology and about this and that. But when I started writing about consciousness and subjects like resonance, dissonance, and discernment, I used to get a little chill run up and down my spine, because I thought, of all the information I'm putting in this book, this is the one thing that they will deny that it has any existence whatsoever. But it's also the other thing that on the inside, they're going to be thinking, this is the most dangerous information that is being put out to people ever. And believe me, I went through hell after the book was published to try to shut me down. And I'm getting back up now. So anyway, when we talk about resonance, dissonance, and discernment, what's the day? Resonance. That's one of the things that has kind of come into the English language in the last decade or so. Oh, wow. I just heard this thing and it really resonates with me. It really resonates, you know. Now, where would something like that come from if we weren't starting to turn on those codons, you know? So it's resonance. Things resonate with us. Their vibration feels good to us. And we know when something doesn't feel good, you know, things come at us and we know it's lies and disinformation because of the feel of it. But to fine tune that feeling and keep fine tuning it and keep fine tuning it until you really have it, to really start to know it. And it's an ongoing process. You know, it's not something where maybe you can flip a switch like and the light is on. You have to just keep testing it and testing it. And one of the things that I used to say is things I used to do myself was I'd get up in the morning and say, okay, I need to make a trip to the grocery store. And I would immediately start thinking, you know, what's the best way, the quickest way to get to the grocery store, you know, and then the streets would just appear in my head, you know, the best way, that there was a block here and you want to go this way and so on and so forth. You know, I used to do that quite often. Something else I used to do, and still can do with cell phones a little bit, but back when we had the regular other kinds of phones with receiver and landline and all that stuff, I used to know who was calling as soon as the phone would ring. And that's another way. I mean, some of you may be able to resonate with that or feel like you've had the same kind of thing. Even now when the cell phone rings, I probably 2 times out of 3 times know who it is when it rings before I even pick it up to see the caller ID. So it started, the thing about vibrations, it started to come into the human consciousness in the 60s and the 70s. There was a song by the Beach Boys, She's Given Me Good Vibrations. You know, it was kind of a song about that. And just let me take a look here in my book. I'm going to kind of refer to it a little bit. So what is resonance and what is dissonance? You know, if we had a classroom here, I would ask questions and I'd say, you know, who can tell me what resonance and dissonance really are? So we don't have a classroom here tonight, so, or today. So I have...
I can be the student.
Yes, okay. So I have 2 things here that help me demonstrate resonance and dissonance really well. This is a harmonica, and as the name implies, it creates harmonies. Okay, it takes notes, and the notes are put together in a very harmonious way. So we get, you know, something like this. So there's a harmony of all kinds of notes, but they all flow and fit together. But then when you take 2 notes where, like, say you have a D note, and then you have D sharp, which is the next key on the piano. There's like a white key that is the D, and then the key right next to it is a black key, and it's D sharp. And you put the 2 of them together. And so I'm going to play a D and a D sharp here on my pitch pipe, and then we'll understand dissonance. Okay,
yeah.
So
the body feels it.
It does, it does.
Just.
And then this one again, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people feel it more sharply than others. So, but that's really the energy of that sound. So what I did was I demonstrated it musically. Yeah. And the energy of that sound is what you hear, and then you actually feel it in your body. Now, the reason we feel so many things in our body is basically our bodies are 70 to 75% water. Okay, so if we were to set a glass of water on the counter and drum our fingers next to it, we would see the water kind of moving a little bit from the vibrations of our finger. And then also you could even sing notes at the water, and you could also see, maybe even more subtly, the sound that you're making in the vibration of the water. So that's it. We're big bags of water. That's a Star Trek term from an alien that was trying to describe humans with.
That's great.
Big bags of water. Because we have all this water, these things come in and they strike our being, and we feel resonance or dissonance. And as we get into this discussion a little more, I'll get into how sometimes a truth, which is resonant, gets by the mainstream media and the people that want to collude and keep us, asleep. They will take a truth and then they will marry a lie to it. Yeah. And that's just like sugarcoating the lie to make people swallow it, because the truth rings clear. It's like Trump says, truth is a force of nature, and so we have truth and it's resonant energy. And then we have lies, which have a dissonant energy, but they'll try to put the 2 together, hoping that the truth will make you swallow the lie. And so it's kind of half and half. It's a tricky thing, but I've watched it happen in the media for some time, and some of you listening might be able to pick that out yourselves, that they'll say something that's true, and then they'll say something that's off in left field, and it kind of leaves you feeling a little confused. Yeah. But for the people that are still indoctrinated and unaware and are not paying attention to their feelings, they're really at risk of becoming even more deeply indoctrinated by the things that are being said to them. So let's see, my head is so full of things to talk about here. Let's see. So this is worth talking about here. How does discernment differ from judgment?
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
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 You would think one is the other, isn't it? No, it's not. Okay. Discernment is something that comes from our energy body. Discernment is a product of when we listen to the vibrations coming into us through sound or visual, or from the media, or from good media and mockingbird media. It's very different. That incoming information, it strikes in here and you feel it as resonant or dissonant. And when you're feeling it as resonant or dissonant, then that's where discernment comes in. Judgment is a mental process. Judgment is something that comes from the years that you've lived and all the things you've learned and all the things you've experienced that have formed your belief systems about how the world really is or how it works and everything else like that. And when someone comes in and challenges that, then you feel judgment about it. But it's a process of the mind. It's much more a process of the mind than it is of the energy body. So that's the difference. And I will give you guys a link. If you don't have my book, if you haven't bought it yet, I would recommend you buy it so that you can read it without having to sit with a bunch of EMFs. But if you want to get a free copy, which is really worth having, even if you have the book, because that way you can do a search through the book for things that you want to find, because it's a long book. It's 530 pages. It has not only my experiences in it, but it has my awakening process, and it has all the research to support my experiences. I wasn't going to come out and say crazy things like I was taken to the moon and had a bunch of terrible experiences there without giving the background to back that information up, because I don't want anybody to think I'm a loony. Some people probably think I am anyway, but they're their own reward. So anyway, so there's a ton of stuff in the book, not just my experiences, but all the research that I did to support them, all the looks at the social and political context in which people had experiences like the ones I've had, and other people have had similar experiences to me and even worse ones. And there is a deep state or a shadow government that is responsible for that feels like they can just take people and use them for their own purposes, especially if they can kind of do it hidden a little bit. So it's a very comprehensive book. And then part 3 is called Awakening. And that is about where I write about consciousness, about resonance, dissonance, and discernment, truth, freedom, and responsibility. There's so many things in there. And incidentally, this really is the book of a patriot as much as it is a UFO contactee or an ET contactee, because I put the oaths of service for all public servants, or almost all, in there, so that people could clearly see that when people are not following their oath of service, then they become a domestic enemy of the United States of America and humanity. And so, I put so much in there. There's just so much in there that I think people can get a lot of benefit from. Okay, so we talked a little bit about judgment, and let's see what else we got here.
Yeah, I really recommend it. It will blow your mind for the people who haven't read it, honestly. And it resonates with different aspects of everybody's life. I noticed. There's so much in it. So much in it. So much.
Yeah, there's very much in there. A whole bunch more than just my story.
Oh yeah.
I had to back everything up with research. So there's another thing here that says a human being. This is really important because sometimes people have a hard time separating what their intuition or their gut sense is telling them from what their emotions are telling them.
Yes.
And so this is what I wrote about that. A human being is a community of many voices. There are many voices that speak in our minds telling us to do this and avoid that. How do we pick out the still small voice of our intuitive expanded awareness from this inner chorus? So basically what I was talking about here is the fact that minus our intuition, if we set that aside for a minute, we are going to be seeking things that make us happy and give us pleasure. And we're going to be avoiding things that we don't like, the things that scare us or make us angry and stuff like that. So we've got this whole avoidance and aversion thing going on, along with pleasure seeking and happiness seeking. So those are emotional. Those are emotional voices that live within us, and they can drag us all over the place. We'll be running away from this and trying to get to this, and it's really kind of a crazy making way to live. So I really highly recommend that you do the meditation practice, that you learn to go still within yourself so that you can learn to discern that still small voice. And when you're listening to it, sometimes it's going to tell you to do things that maybe you don't want to do because it sounds like something you want to avoid from the aversion side. And it might tell you something that you want to do, but lots of times my still small voice has challenged me to do things. And I thought of a metaphor earlier today where, I don't really like heights very much, but sometimes when I'm at a swimming pool, I'll go up on the high dive and I'll walk out to the end of the board way high over the pool. And I'll stand there and I'll just kind of look around and I'll take a few breaths. And then I'll go ahead and dive in. And it's an exhilarating experience to face into that apprehension that I have,
Wow. Wow.
So anyway, this community of voices, there's the body itself, if it's hurting, that's going to have a voice.
Yeah.
If it's feeling good, it's going to have a voice. Your emotions have all kinds of voices, everything on a spectrum of, I really want that, and I really hate that, and I don't want it. There's all kinds of things. But the still small voice, the intuitive voice, is the one that we want to tune into. And the best way you can do that is to learn to quiet the mind. And there is a third eye point in here. It's just between, a little above the eyebrows and back in the head a little bit. And when you can learn to put your attention on that point, it's kind of halfway between the outer skin here and the pineal gland in the center of the head. That's where the third eye is. It's actually halfway between. So if the pineal gland's here and your forehead skin is here, then the third eye point is there. Okay. And once you learn to do it, you can develop a feeling about when you have your attention correctly on the third eye point. It's almost like a marble rolling around in a pinball machine, and it finds the hole that it's supposed to fall into it. It just falls in there, and there's a feeling that goes with that. That's just one metaphor, but I know that when I find that point in my spiritual practice, I have a lot easier time quieting the mind. If I'm not in that point, it's a little tougher. And in Buddhism, which I practiced Buddhist meditation for 8 years, they had this practice called naming. So whenever a distracting thought would come up, you would name it. Okay, well, arguing, feeling angry, you just name it and it would dismiss it, and you'd be able to get more still. Mm-hmm. So that's one way of doing it. Where was I going with this? I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, it's just learning to connect with that part of yourself, that essential part of yourself, which is a spark of God. Okay, it's soul. It's your soul. Okay, and when we're in contact with the soul through that third eye point, which I liken as a portal, you know.
It is.
It's like whenever I do my spiritual practice, I go to that point and I think, well, I don't know if anything stupendous is really going to happen when I do this, but I want to make the chance for it to happen. So I'll go to that point, and many times it doesn't happen. But I'll go to that point because to me, that point is the portal through which I can step when I get my mind quiet enough and the conditions are right. I can step through that portal and I can go to some amazing places through direct perception. It's like traveling without moving the body. It's really an amazing thing. And it also helps you get in touch with that still small voice that is the voice of the guiding light that you are, that is a spark of the creator itself.
Yes.
And that's the voice that usually will never steer you wrong. Now, there have been times in my life when I have followed that voice and have gotten myself into a mess. So did I go wrong? You know, at the time it seemed, why did I get this direction to do this? Because now everything's screwed up. But sometimes through that screw up, you learn so much that it was the right choice. So it's a tricky thing. And it's a journey that each one of you listening to this program is going to have to take on an individual basis. And if you're lucky, you'll have friends that will want to take the journey with you, and you can get together and have tea once a week and talk about how it's going for you and share your thoughts. You know, that's a nice thing to do. But it is a very individual journey. No one can take it for you. It's something you have to undertake for yourself. And let's see. Well, Elena, do you have anything that you'd like to add at this point?
Yes, I think I find it that I've learned not to resist when emotions get in the way, because when I experience contact throughout this portal, or even contact with beings that are around me in different densities, sometimes it's going to trigger a memory or an emotion. And first, I used to fight them to not interfere, but it was making things worse. The thing was growing. So just embracing it and letting it go. Okay, you're here. I acknowledge you're here, emotion. And I find it great what you said, to name them. Fantastic. Yeah, that's a good idea. And yeah. I used to just, okay, you're here, I acknowledge you. Okay, you're here, now you can go. And the emotion was going. It's difficult. It's very, very difficult. I like when you speak about dissonance and resonance. How do you apply this when you meet an entity, when you have contact with either an entity or either an embodied, incarnated human or extraterrestrial? How do you use this dissonance, resonance? Can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, well, when you meet another human being, it works too, you know. Yeah. But you really want to bring this whole thing into play if you meet an extraterrestrial. And it's very possible that many of us are going to meet extraterrestrials within the next decade, even sooner. So you have somebody standing in front of you, and they have blue skin and black hair, and they're wearing a different type of clothing than we usually see on Earth. And this is very different, okay? The mind is going to say, well, this is really different from what I'm used to. So what is it about this person? And you might start slipping into judgment a little bit. But what you need to do is just kind of let the feelings wash over you of this person and who they are, because the energetics of them is going to be right there in front of you as well. And if you're really willing to pick up on that, you're going to know whether this is someone who is a benevolent being who wishes you no harm, or you're going to know if there's some other agenda afoot in this individual, because they will have a certain energy. They will behave in a certain way, but more than just the behavior, it's the energy. It's the energy that you have to really pay attention to. And those of us who develop this kind of discernment and this understanding of resonance and dissonance, we're going to have to help the people that have not developed it, because they're going to be coming to terms with the fact that, wow, we now have extraterrestrials walking around on our planet. And they're going to think, I don't know if I can handle this. I mean, it's completely outside my religious paradigm. You know, what does this really mean? You know, am I really a child of God? Is this creature a child of God too? And they're going to just be filled with all kinds of stuff that's of the mind.
Very disturbing.
And you're going to have, yes, and you're going to have to help them get into their heart and into those feelings and into those energies of resonance and dissonance, and learn to perceive what's going on around them with that way. And there will be trial and error, you know, I mean, just accept it. There will be trial and error. But we all, each of us, have spirit guides that watch over us, and they will do our best to warn us if we're getting into a bad situation. And that's another reason, again, to develop that connection with your higher self, with your soul, so that you can listen to the information coming from that source. You know, it's really, really, it's very important. And yeah, so.
Yes. I met a few different types of extraterrestrials, and first, it is very disturbing. I spoke about that already. Well, you as well. You meet a few disturbing ones. The first thing is you judge, you try to associate to what you know. We have a database in the brain of different things we've known, we've seen in our lives, and we try to relate to it. The brain does that instantly. The thing is, we must, I believe we must try to not do that. Just take the fact, this guy has a blue skin, or maybe he has, I don't know, red eyes, orange hair, 6 arms. You know, I haven't met these ones, I just make it up. But just take the fact, okay, he looks like it, it looks like it. Now, what energy comes from it? I'm not going to apply my mind and my concept on this person and see through this filter. I'm just shutting everything down and just see what he sends to me. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, that's what you have to do. And this thing comes from me from Star Trek, or not Star Trek, Star Wars. The first Star Wars movie that they put out, where Obi-Wan Kenobi was teaching Luke about how to be a Jedi. And they were on the Millennium Falcon, and they was practicing with that ball that would float around, and then he had him fight it with a shield over his eyes so he couldn't see. And he said, well, with the shield down, I can't even see. How am I supposed to fight? And Obi-Wan said, your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them.
Oh, yes.
Stretch out your feelings. Stretch out with your feelings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Then that was an extraordinary moment. Yes, and it's, the eyes can deceive, but I think when you take this expression, it's by when he said the eyes can deceive you, it's your, in fact, the mind, how you interpret it, what you see also, you know, it's the judgment, you mentioned it. It's very, very difficult to shut the judgment.
It is difficult, and I would say don't even try. But if you develop yourself as a spiritual being, you're going to know when you're going into judgment, and you will be able to know, is it appropriate for me to go into a judgment right now? Or should I just be stretching out with my feelings? You know, you'll be able to make those kinds of decisions in yourself, because you'll be becoming a galactic human yourself. You know, if, like I said, if we can stay in touch with the things that bring us joy, the things where love, I mean, we're entering the Christmas season. That's a season of love and joy and giving for so many people. And those are the emotions that help us wake up, you know? So I mean, there's so much. I mean, I can't really distill everything into this one conversation. I just want to put some ideas out here and help people think about it a little more and think about who they really are and start asking themselves, who am I really, at the core of me, I mean, I can say I'm Niara Isley and I have this physical form and I like to do these kinds of activities and I don't like to do those kind of activities. Is that really who I am? No, it's not really who I am at the core. At the core, I'm that spark of God that someday will return home to the place where the Creator lives. I don't really like the word God. In my book, I use the conscious living and loving universe itself, or multiverse itself.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love that.
That's more descriptive to me of the being that I feel like I'm part of and that I connect to, and especially when I'm out in nature. I connected to all this out in nature as a small child, and I still connect with it today in nature, because that's where you can feel the energies. Like if you look at a tree and you really look at it and you see it not as this thing with a trunk and leaves that's just kind of growing and whatever, you look at it and see it as a living being. You may feel appreciation coming back to you from that tree, saying, wow, this person really sees me. And then you could also experience the wonder of getting a hug from the tree. And you know what that is? That's when the tree expands its energy field to encompass you. And then you feel this energy all around you that you know is coming from the tree. You just feel that it's coming from the tree. And you just feel so loved because you've seen the tree for what it truly is, for who it truly is. And, that's one thing to try too. And I actually developed a little song. When I would go on hikes, I developed a little song that I call my giveaway song to the spirits of play. I'll sing one verse of it, or one round of it. It goes, one with the sky, connected to the universe. One with the earth, my mother, I walk my path. One with the mountains, I share their strength. One with the birds and the animals, I share their gifts. Walking in balance, living with love, walking in reverence, round the circle of life.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So when I'm in nature, I'll sing that 5 times. I'll sing it one time for each direction and then one time for the vertical direction of which I am, between heaven and earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing you singing this, it was resonance.
Yes.
Harmony. To me, I had this phrase, sentence to my mind, the divine feminine resonating, singing through to the sound, through your it was the voice of your heart, and you really channel a message and a connection. It's a connection song, isn't it? It's a resonance with.
Yeah. It's celebrating that I'm connected to all life on this planet, the planet itself. Even the minerals and the rocks, they're alive too. They have their own consciousness. And that brings me to another point, because I'm thinking about crystals. Crystals is another part of this. We have our DNA is a crystalline structure, and it's like a transmitter and a receiver.
Yes.
Of all kinds of energies that are coming from the cosmos, that are coming from living things all around us. Kind of like maybe, again, the Force in Star Wars,
Yeah.
it connects it, we're connected to it, and it binds the universe together. That's very true.
It's the antenna.
And yeah, it is. So that crystalline structure of the DNA is also picking up the vibrations and vibrating in harmony, because the energy coming to you is resonance, or it's going, you know, if something dissonant is coming in, it's right in your DNA. And you know, you're not going to feel in one strand. I mean, there's a strand in every cell of your body, so it's going to be a full body experience, where the water in the body that surrounds the DNA in the body, and that the DNA has its life within, it works together. It works together. The crystalline form of the DNA works together with the water and the vibrational, the rich vibrational medium that is water.
Yes.
And
which is very important. I want to emphasize the water aspect. The few technology and energy devices I've been told about, some of them need water. Water is a necessary element to conduct the life force, the force, call it frail force. Water is an important element. So that's, so do we. We are generators. We are, yeah.
Yeah, there was a Dr. Masaru Emoto back years ago when we had the movie come out, What the Bleep Do You Know? They spent a lot of time on what would happen to water if certain energies were put into it. And the water would form a structure based on what energy was being put into it. You know, so love was a beautiful structure, and hatred was a very ugly structure. And they would take pictures, I think, of the water and the structure it would form with an electron microscope. I believe that's how they got the pictures. But you could see the difference in how the water was energized. If it was energized with something harmonious, you got a beautiful pattern. If it was energized with something dissonant, you got really ugly patterns.
Yes, and that's so important, because we are bombarded, the deep state has bombarded us with low frequency, on the frequency of fear, of, you know, all these bad things that create dissonance in ourselves and disconnect us from our power. And we always say, oh, radiate love and peace. It's not a new age thing, concept. It's science. It's higher science. We need to resonate on the frequency of love and peace. Find inner peace. I always say, find inner peace by healing your wounds first. Find inner peace, and then you reconnect to your power. You illustrate it very well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, like I said, if we had an actual classroom setting, I'm sure we could probably go on this subject for at least 3 hours with all the questions and discussion and things like that. We don't have that today. Might be interesting to make that available at some point.
What we can do, we can just broadcast this live and then do a Q&A segment. We can do that after that.
Yeah, and if people see the video, you can always ask questions in the comments.
Yes.
And collect those questions and try to answer some of them as well. But contact is coming eventually, and we want to be ready for it as we can be. And we want to also be helping people that haven't had our chances to learn about resonance, dissonance, and discernment, about who we truly are and the core of our being, which is a spark of God. You know, there's a lot of people that just are really disconnected from that. And it's because of the indoctrination that they've had throughout their lives, that for one reason, they just sucked it up and took it in, and it formed all their belief systems and their paradigm. That paradigm is going to shatter. and they're really going to need our help. And if we're alive on the planet today and we're conscious and aware to any degree, we chose to be here at this time to help other people through the paradigm shattering and the building of a new paradigm, the creation and the birth of a new paradigm. We're here for that purpose.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we came for that. And we must first attune ourselves to our true power, and then we are able to help this new paradigm to install the new program.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's why this transhumanist movement is so dangerous, because if you let technology come into your body and start taking over certain functions, you will never be able to it's going to be extremely hard to break free of that, because the machine parts, the nanotechnology parts inside your body will not allow you to access that greater part of who you are.
Yes.
It'll try to shut you down in whatever way it can.
Yeah.
So that's the risk of all the stuff that is going on right now, that a lot of people are saying is part of transhumanism, trying to merge biological with machine. And yeah, it's severely limited. I mean, right now we are unlimited beings. We're only limited by how far our imagination can go. But when we marry the human physiology to machines, we're going to lose that, and it would be extremely hard to ever get it back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. So
well, think of the Borg,
Borg.
Think of the Borg in Star Trek, and think of Seven of Nine. If you watched
yes,
the Voyager series, when she starting to feel her emotions and everything, her cortical node shut her down, and the doctor found her unconscious. She was not allowed to do that, because that was one of the, feeling who the core of who she was, to feel love and feel things for another human being. That's an enemy feeling for the Borg. That's going to destroy their whole collective. They can't allow that, so they shut her down. So,
yes,
yeah.
yes. That's why. Yeah, we must not have these things in us first of all.
Very important. Very, very important.
Yes. So please.
Yeah.
Let's say something.
So, let's see what time it is. We're kind of coming up on being an hour here.
Yes. So
I want to leave us with something really uplifting. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tune into the word freedom, and I'm going to sing one of my channeled singings of the energy of freedom. And I want to close our show with that. Okay? All right. So.
Everyone, stay in a high frequency. The voice of your heart, singing always the song of your soul. And this will guide you through this time and allow you to see clearly.
Yeah. And the song of your soul is the song of freedom. Always.
Thank you, Niara.
Thank you for having me. And much love to all of you that were listening today. Okay. Lots of love to you. And may many lights light your path.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Niara. Thank you.
All right. Good night.